this book because they knew that the minister won't even read it. Yes, I mean, it shows this disconnect between what's happening and what we know. So it's very difficult for me to give you, hard facts. But let me say about something that happened 2 weeks ago. That there was a world branding poll, which was asked worldwide about people, how they feel about the brands of different countries. If a product is made in Germany, a product is made in Japan, what do they think about it? And whether they would want to buy a product from that country, and if it's associated with good quality, or good price, or whatever, and also which country contributes more to global instability. And Israel, for the first time, got the worst brand, the last place in the world below North Korea. So this is an indication that there is a free fall of this economy. But we don't necessarily see this as long as the Israeli military keeps fighting with American weapons that they get from the US, because these weapons are very advanced. And so they create the illusion that the Israeli military is strong. Now the question is, do we live in a world in which the weapons have become so powerful, with artificial intelligence and targeting systems and so on, that just a handful of poorly trained, undisciplined soldiers can defeat whole armies, control populations of millions, and do it with impunity? Or is this just a temporary phase that we're seeing because the internal rot in Israeli society is taking its toll, and there's really no reason for other groups to fight and suffer thousands of casualties if they can just wait a bit. So we don't know which of the two is the case. I do believe that we're in the second scenario, and I hope very much that we're in the second scenario, meaning that no, we haven't reached a level of technology that allows dictators to just oppress the whole population, that there is still the reliance on human beings in the system of control and producing state violence. So I do believe this. I do see indications of this, and I think that we are seeing it also. Like if we listen carefully to what the governments are saying, Trump said, "We're going to take over Gaza." Within less than 24 hours, he amended what he said and said, "Oh, actually, Israel will take over Gaza and give it to us." Because what did he hear from his own generals, from his own advisors? Yeah, we're not going to send U.S. troops to die in Gaza. So it's not so easy as they make it seem. So yeah, this is I think the sign of imminent collapse. And then in Israel, people responded to this by saying, is Israel even a sovereign state, or is Trump calling the shots for Israel? And why should Israelis serve in the military if they're only following dictates from somewhere else? One reservist, anonymous reservist, gave an interview to one of the main podcasts in Israel, and he said, "In my battalion we have 100 soldiers, only 6 show up."
I think we have time for maybe just 1 or 2 more questions.
Okay. Yeah, please.
It's news to me as well. It's the state of kind of economic collapse, and I think we've showed from that news a lot. So, from the perspective of BDS, how do you leverage that situation to take advantage of this moment and strengthen the movement?
Yeah, we leverage the situation by saying trade with Israel, not just the military embargo, but also financial investment or any kind of investment. Buying Israeli products is immoral because it finances war crimes, atrocities, genocide. It's illegal because of the sanctions imposed by the ICJ and authorized by the UN, and it's stupid because the economy is collapsing. So this is how you leverage it. And if we look at the example of the boycott campaign against South Africa, when apartheid was defeated, it was defeated, the boycott movement against South Africa, there's a lot of debate how important it was and whether that was what made apartheid fall or not. But one thing is very clear, that when people said we will boycott South African goods, just a consumer boycott, we don't want to buy these goods, it had a small economic effect but a big psychological effect. And at some point when Citibank, a bank you may have heard of, said we're going to close all of our branches in South Africa and stop all of our deals with this government, not because of moral reasons, but just because they didn't want to lose customers and they thought it's not worth it financially. And when Citibank took this decision, the South African regime collapsed very quickly. So that's the leverage. One last question and then, yeah?
Maybe you're starting to speak to this, but I'm wondering about the current regime, political power, how you see some of these last comments relating to influencing their ability to be in control, to maintain control, to act. From where you sit, what you're describing, are they vulnerable?
Which regime are you talking about? In Israel?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the regime in Israel is in a very precarious situation, because even though there's nobody who can really compete with Netanyahu, there's not like an opposition leader who could take over. Nobody. There are some names that are, it's completely delusional to think that they could be elected as prime minister because they don't have the votes. But you have the right wing who support Netanyahu, and they are not a majority. They're one I would say quarter. Then you have the liberal Zionists or the mainstream Zionists who are considered to be the opposition. Sometimes people call them left by mistake. They are the ones leading the country. They are the ones who are disempowered. They're the ones who see that the government is driving Israel over a cliff, but there's nothing really they can do about it. Then you have the Messianic right wing. The Messianic right wing is very unstrategic. They're saying it doesn't matter if we don't have enough soldiers. It doesn't matter if we don't have any money. It doesn't matter if the world is boycotting us, because God is on our side. God will send the Messiah. Maybe the Messiah is Trump. And if that way of thinking is very suicidal, very dangerous. But they're also a minority, but they're a very vocal and powerful minority within Israel. Then, of course, you have the non-Zionist groups, which are first, and together they comprise quite a big chunk, almost 40%, because of the citizens, because some of them are the Palestinian non-Zionist citizens of Israel who are being oppressed with unprecedented violence. So it's very difficult for them to speak up in this moment. But of course they don't support the government. Of course they don't support their oppressors and the people who are killing their family members in the West Bank or in Gaza. And you have the ultra-Orthodox Jews. And they are a very key component, because the ultra-Orthodox Jews maybe support the government, support the genocide on a theoretical level, but they won't go to the army. And because they won't go to the army, a lot of the soldiers say, why should we go to the army when they don't? So even if we politically agree with the genocide, but we will refuse and go home unless the ultra-Orthodox get recruited. And so this is an impasse. It's a very, very difficult situation for the Israeli regime. The reason that Netanyahu fired Gallant, the Minister of Defense, and appointed a yes man to replace him with no military experience, because he needed a Minister of Defense who agrees not to recruit the ultra-Orthodox, because then they would be in open rebellion and then it all falls apart. So it's a very unsustainable political arrangement, which is based on the idea that you cannot hold an election in the middle of a war, so there needs to be a ceasefire. Now there's a ceasefire, but they say, oh, but we're gonna break the ceasefire, and there's not going to be a second phase of the ceasefire, so there's no need for election. But if there is a second phase of the ceasefire, there will be election, and nobody wants them. not Netanyahu, who is very concerned about this, but also not the opposition, who don't have the numbers. And nobody can promise to the ultra-Orthodox that they will not serve in the military, except for Palestinians. Right? They are the only ones who do have the numbers, because Palestinians are the majority in Palestine, who do have the moral high ground. They are the ones who are not committing genocide, and who have a right as the indigenous population to be free in their own country. They're the ones who have the law on their side. So this is a threat that has, for many, many decades, unified all the different Zionist parties in order to stand against the indigenous population and to suppress it. But if they're so internally divided, they cannot do it anymore. So I don't see this regime lasting for very long. Thank you very much.
I think I speak for all of us that was super energizing, and my head is just spinning of sort of all the ways we could go from here and all the different connections that we could make. So I think we're really grateful for your time with us tonight. We briefly forgot to bring